Most people think they are suffering because someone hurt them, but that is not the real reason your heart still feels heavy. The truth is more uncomfortable and more freeing than you expect. The pain already happened, but every day you replay it, you choose to carry it again. You wake up, and without realizing it, you invite the same person back into your mind, into your emotions, into your peace. Buddhism teaches that suffering does not come from what occurred, but from attachment to what no longer exists. Today, you will not be asked to forgive, forget, or pretend nothing mattered. You will be invited to do something far more powerful, to set down the weight you have been dragging for far too long, and to choose your own happiness without guilt, without anger, and without fear. 1. Pain ends, but attachment extends suffering. Buddhism teaches something very gentle yet very powerful. Pain is a natural part of being human, but suffering is something the mind creates when it refuses to let pain move on. Pain comes from life itself. Someone you trusted may disappoint you. Someone you loved may leave. Words may be spoken that cannot be taken back. These moments hurt, and that hurt is real. Buddhism does not deny pain or ask you to pretend you were not wounded. Pain arrives like a wave. It rises, stays for a while, and then, by its very nature, begins to fall. This is how emotions are meant to work. They come, they are felt, and they pass. Suffering begins when the mind interrupts this natural process. Instead of allowing pain to leave, the mind keeps calling it back. You replay the conversation again and again, wondering what you should have said or what they should have done differently. You imagine alternate endings where you were treated better or where they finally understand your worth. You hold on to resentment as if it is evidence that your pain mattered. In these moments, you are no longer living in the present. You are living inside a memory that no longer exists, yet feels alive because your attention keeps feeding it. The Buddha taught that attachment is the root of suffering, and many people misunderstand this teaching. Attachment is not only about clinging to pleasure, people, or possessions. It also includes clinging to pain, clinging to identity as the one who was wronged, and clinging to old wounds because letting go feels frightening. Sometimes pain becomes familiar, and familiarity feels safer than the unknown. The mind believes that holding on protects you, but in reality, it keeps you trapped. When you keep carrying who hurt you, you may think you are honoring what you went through, but you are actually forcing your heart to relive it again and again. Each replay tightens the body, disturbs the breath, and reopens an emotional wound that was already trying to heal. This is why suffering can last for years, even though the painful event lasted only moments. The event ended, but the attachment did not. Letting go does not mean saying that what happened was okay. It does not mean forgetting, excusing, or approving of the harm. Letting go simply means allowing pain to do what it naturally wants to do, pass through you and leave. It means recognizing that you do not need to carry proof of your suffering in order for it to be valid. Your pain was real even if you release it. Your experience mattered even if you stop reliving it. In Buddhism, letting go is an act of wisdom, not weakness. It is choosing not to turn a temporary wound into a permanent story. When you allow pain to complete its natural cycle, you free your mind from unnecessary burden and you make space for peace, clarity, and healing to return. 2. Carrying them keeps you emotionally bound to them. Buddhism teaches that true freedom does not depend on where someone is physically, but on whether they still occupy space in your mind. Many people believe that once someone leaves their life, the chapter is over, but this is often not true. Even when a person is gone, even when there is no contact, no messages, no presence, they can continue to live inside your thoughts. When this happens, you are still emotionally tied to them, even though the relationship has ended. Every time you remember what they did, every time anger rises, every time sadness tightens your chest, that person is still influencing your inner world. They may no longer speak to you, but their actions continue to shape your emotions. They may no longer control your life outwardly, but inwardly they still have power. Buddhism teaches that suffering continues as long as the mind remains attached, not to the person themselves, but to the story, the pain, and the meaning we gave to what happened. When you keep carrying someone who hurt you, you unknowingly stay connected to them through resistance. The mind believes that by holding on to anger or resentment, it is protecting you from being hurt again. But what it is really doing is keeping the wound open. You become emotionally reactive, easily triggered by reminders, and unable to fully relax into the present moment. In this way, the past continues to live through you, even though it has already ended. The Buddha taught that clinging creates bondage. This bondage does not look like chains on the body, it looks like restlessness in the mind. You may notice that even during peaceful moments, thoughts of them suddenly appear. Your mood changes, your breath becomes shallow, your heart tightens. This is a sign that the attachment is still active. As long as this continues, you are not fully free, because your emotional state is still being shaped by something outside of your control. Letting go is not about pretending you no longer care. It is about recognizing that your peace should not depend on someone who has already shown they could not protect it. When you stop carrying who hurt you, you are not saying they were unimportant. You are saying that your inner freedom is more important than staying emotionally connected to pain. You are choosing to bring your attention back to yourself, to your breath, to this moment, instead of handing your emotional power to someone who no longer deserves it. Buddhism reminds us that peace comes from within, not from correcting the past or changing others. The moment you release the emotional grip of someone who hurt you, you reclaim your energy. You stop leaking peace into memories. You stop allowing the past to dictate your present. This is not something that happens instantly, but each time you choose awareness over reaction, you loosen the bond. And slowly, gently, you begin to feel lighter, calmer, and more whole again. 3. Your mind reopens wounds your body already healed. Buddhism teaches that the body and the mind heal in very different ways. The body understands how to recover naturally. When you are physically injured, the body rests, repairs itself, and slowly returns to balance. A cut closes, a bruise fades, even deep injuries soften with time. The body does not keep remembering the pain once healing begins. It does not replay the moment of injury over and over again. It simply does what it was designed to do: heal and move forward. The mind, however, behaves differently when it is not guided by awareness. Instead of allowing emotional wounds to close, the mind keeps touching them. It keeps asking, "Why did this happen to me?" It keeps replaying the moment of hurt, the words that were said, the silence that followed, the betrayal that shocked you. Each replay feels like an attempt to understand, but in reality, it is a reopening of the wound. Buddhism teaches that this constant mental repetition is one of the main causes of prolonged suffering. Every time you revisit the past emotionally, your nervous system responds as if the pain is happening again. Your heart tightens, your breath becomes shallow, your muscles tense without you realizing it. Even though the event is over, your body is forced to relive it through the mind's storytelling. This is why you may feel exhausted, anxious, or heavy without knowing why. You are carrying pain that your body was already trying to release. The Buddha taught mindfulness because awareness breaks this cycle. When you become aware of how often the mind returns to old wounds, you begin to see that these thoughts are not helping you heal. They are simply habits. The mind clings to familiar pain because it feels safer than uncertainty. Letting go feels risky because the mind believes that holding on keeps you prepared or protected. But Buddhism reminds us that true safety comes from presence, not from reliving the past. You do not heal by thinking more about what hurt you. You heal by allowing space between the memory and your attention. This does not mean suppressing your emotions or forcing yourself to be positive. It means noticing when the mind drifts into old pain and gently bringing it back to the present moment, back to your breath, back to your body, back to what is real right now. The body is always ready to heal, but it cannot do so fully if the mind keeps pulling it backward. When you stop reopening emotional wounds with repetitive thought, you allow the body and nervous system to settle. Over time, the charge of the memory weakens. The pain becomes softer. The story loses its grip. Buddhism teaches that peace does not come from fixing the past, but from releasing the mind's habit of living in it. When you understand this, letting go no longer feels like losing something important. It feels like finally allowing yourself to rest. 4. Happiness cannot grow in a mind full of resentment. Buddhism teaches that happiness is not something you chase outside of yourself. It is something that naturally arises when the mind is calm, clear, and unburdened. Just as a garden cannot grow when the soil is poisoned, inner peace cannot grow in a mind filled with resentment. Resentment may feel justified, especially when you were deeply hurt, disrespected, or treated unfairly. The mind often believes that holding on to anger is a form of strength, a way of protecting your dignity or proving that what happened mattered. But Buddhism gently reveals a difficult truth. Resentment harms the one who carries it far more than the one it is directed toward. When resentment takes root, it quietly occupies your thoughts. It colors how you see the world. Even moments that could have been peaceful become tense because the mind is always slightly on guard. You may notice that happiness feels distant, short-lived, or incomplete. You might smile, laugh, or experience brief joy, but it fades quickly, replaced by heaviness. This is because resentment keeps the nervous system activated. The body remains alert, defensive, and ready to react, even when no threat is present. Buddhism teaches that as long as the mind remains in this state, true happiness cannot settle. Resentment is not always loud. Sometimes it is silent and subtle. It shows up as bitterness, emotional withdrawal, or constant comparison. It may appear as distrust toward others or a deep sense of injustice that follows you everywhere. The mind keeps returning to the past, reminding you of what you lost, what you deserved, and how you were wronged. Each return reinforces the pain. Each replay strengthens the attachment. In this way, resentment becomes a cycle that feeds itself. The Buddha taught that anger and resentment are forms of inner fire. At first, you may believe this fire keeps you warm or strong, but over time, it only burns you. It consumes your energy, clouds your judgment, and prevents you from seeing life clearly. When resentment is present, even good things feel fragile because the heart is not fully open. You may find it difficult to trust happiness, afraid that it will be taken away just like before. Letting go of resentment does not mean pretending the pain never happened. It does not mean forcing forgiveness before you are ready. Buddhism does not ask you to bypass your emotions or deny your experience. Instead, it asks you to observe the cost of holding on. Ask yourself gently, what has resentment given me so far? Has it brought peace? Has it healed my heart? Or has it kept me trapped in a story that cannot be changed? Choosing happiness is not choosing pleasure or distraction. It is choosing to stop feeding what hurts you. It is recognizing that you deserve peace, even if others never take responsibility for their actions. When you begin to release resentment, even slowly, you may notice small changes. Your breath becomes deeper. Your body feels lighter. Your mind feels less crowded. These are signs that happiness is beginning to find space again. Buddhism teaches that happiness grows naturally when the mind is free from unnecessary burdens. When resentment loosens its grip, awareness expands, gratitude becomes easier, presence feels more accessible. You begin to respond to life instead of reacting to old pain. This is not a sudden transformation, but a gradual unfolding. Each moment you choose not to replay the hurt, you are watering the seeds of peace. In the end, letting go of resentment is not something you do for the person who hurt you. It is something you do for yourself. It is a quiet decision to stop sacrificing your happiness to a past that cannot be rewritten. When the mind is no longer occupied by resentment, happiness does not need to be forced. It arrives naturally, gently, and without effort, because the heart is finally ready to receive it. 5. Letting go is an act of self-respect. Buddhism teaches that self-respect is not loud, defensive, or aggressive. True self-respect is quiet. It is shown in the choices you make when no one is watching, especially the choice to stop carrying what is harming you. Many people believe that holding on to pain proves strength, loyalty to their experience, or justice for what they endured. But Buddhism gently reveals that continuing to suffer is not a requirement for honoring your past. You do not need to keep hurting to prove that you were hurt. When someone causes deep emotional pain, the mind often clings to that pain as a way of saying, "This mattered. I mattered." There is fear that if you let go, the experience will be dismissed, minimized, or forgotten. But letting go does not erase the truth. Your pain does not lose its validity just because you stop carrying it. What happened to you remains real, even when you choose peace over pain. Self-respect begins when you realize that your inner world deserves protection. Buddhism teaches that the mind is like a home. If you allow resentment, anger, and old wounds to stay there indefinitely, the home becomes heavy and unlivable. Letting go is the moment you decide to clean that space, not because the pain was insignificant, but because your well-being is significant. It is saying to yourself, "I will no longer allow my peace to be disturbed by what I cannot change." Many people confuse letting go with weakness, avoidance, or surrender. In truth, it takes great strength to release what the ego wants to keep. The ego wants to replay the story, prove it was wronged, and hold on to identity as the one who suffered. Buddhism teaches that clinging to this identity binds you to the past. When you let go, you are not losing yourself. You are freeing yourself from a version of you that was formed in pain. Letting go is also an act of honesty. It requires you to see that holding on has a cost. It costs energy, sleep, emotional balance, and joy. It affects how you relate to others, how you trust, and how safe you feel in the world. Self-respect means acknowledging this cost and deciding that your life deserves more than constant emotional struggle. Buddhism emphasizes right effort, which means putting energy into what leads to peace and withdrawing energy from what leads to suffering. Letting go is right effort in action. You stop feeding thoughts that reopen wounds. You stop rehearsing arguments that will never happen. You stop carrying emotional weight that belongs to the past. This does not happen overnight. Self-respect is built slowly through repeated gentle choices. As you practice letting go, you may feel resistance. The mind may try to pull you back into old pain, reminding you of why you were hurt. This is normal. Buddhism does not demand perfection. It invites patience. Each time you notice the pull and choose awareness instead, you strengthen your self-respect. Each time you return to the present moment, you remind yourself that you deserve peace now, not someday. Letting go is not forgetting. It is remembering yourself. It is remembering that your worth does not depend on how much pain you can endure. It depends on how wisely you care for your heart. When you stop carrying who hurt you, you are not abandoning your story. You are turning the page with dignity. In Buddhism, true freedom comes when you stop punishing yourself for what others did. Letting go is the moment you stop sacrificing your present happiness to protect a past that no longer needs defense. This is self-respect in its purest form, choosing your well-being, quietly, consistently, and without guilt. 6. Compassion includes yourself. Buddhism teaches compassion as one of the highest virtues, yet many people misunderstand what compassion truly means. They believe compassion requires endless tolerance, constant forgiveness, and the willingness to absorb pain without limits. In reality, Buddhism teaches that compassion without wisdom becomes self-harm. True compassion is balanced. It includes understanding, kindness, and patience, but it also includes awareness, boundaries, and self-care. Most importantly, compassion must include yourself. When someone hurts you, the mind often tells you that letting go would make you cruel, cold, or unforgiving. It whispers that if you release the pain, you are somehow betraying your values or denying what you endured. Buddhism gently corrects this misunderstanding. You can acknowledge someone's humanity without carrying the weight of their actions. You can understand their suffering without making it your own. Compassion does not require you to stay emotionally wounded. Self-compassion begins with recognizing your limits. You are human. You have a nervous system, a heart that feels deeply, and a mind that needs rest. When you repeatedly expose yourself to memories, people, or situations that reopen wounds, you are not practicing compassion, you are ignoring your own suffering. Buddhism teaches that suffering should be met with care, not endurance. If your heart is tired, it deserves gentleness. If your mind is overwhelmed, it deserves quiet. Many people stay attached to pain because they believe they must fully forgive before they are allowed to move on. Buddhism does not demand forced forgiveness. Forgiveness, when it arises, should come naturally from understanding, not pressure. Letting go can happen even before forgiveness. You can choose peace without having resolved every emotion. You can step away from pain without fully understanding it. Compassion toward yourself means allowing healing to unfold at its own pace. The Buddha taught the middle way, which avoids extremes. One extreme is holding on to resentment and anger, which poisons the heart. The other extreme is suppressing pain and pretending nothing hurts, which leads to emotional numbness. Self-compassion lives in the middle. It allows you to feel what you feel without becoming trapped by it. It lets you say, "This hurt me," while also saying, "I do not need to suffer forever." Compassion toward yourself also means setting internal boundaries. Even if you cannot control external circumstances, you can control how much mental space you give to the past. Each time the mind replays old pain, you can gently redirect it, not with force, not with judgment, but with kindness. You can say inwardly, "I have thought about this enough. It is time to rest." This is not avoidance. This is care. Buddhism teaches loving kindness, not only toward others, but toward your own mind and body. When you practice loving kindness toward yourself, you stop speaking harshly to yourself for still feeling pain. You stop blaming yourself for not being over it yet. You understand that healing is not linear. Some days are lighter. Some days feel heavy again. Compassion means allowing both without self-criticism. It is also important to understand that compassion does not mean staying emotionally available to those who caused harm. You can wish someone peace without keeping them close. You can let go of anger without reopening communication. Buddhism respects boundaries because boundaries protect clarity. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It is responsible. A calm mind is better able to respond wisely to life than a mind constantly triggered by old wounds. As you practice self-compassion, something subtle begins to change. The tightness in the chest softens, the breath deepens, the mind becomes less reactive. You begin to notice that you no longer need to explain your pain to justify your healing. You no longer need permission to move on. Compassion toward yourself becomes a quiet strength, guiding your choices gently rather than forcefully. Buddhism reminds us that suffering decreases when kindness increases, especially inwardly. When you treat yourself with compassion, you stop viewing healing as something you must earn. You allow it to happen naturally. Letting go then feels less like loss and more like relief. You realize that you are not abandoning your pain, you are caring for it properly. True compassion does not ask you to sacrifice your peace, it asks you to protect it. When compassion finally includes yourself, healing becomes possible, not because the past has changed, but because you have changed how you relate to it. 7. Freedom begins when you choose the present moment. Buddhism teaches that freedom is not something you reach someday in the future, after everything is resolved, explained, or understood. Freedom exists only in the present moment. Yet when you carry who hurt you, you rarely live here. Your body may be sitting in this moment, but your mind is often somewhere else, replaying the past, preparing imaginary conversations, or anticipating future pain based on old experiences. In this way, you miss the only place where peace can actually exist, which is now. The Buddha taught that suffering arises when the mind resists reality as it is. The past has already happened. No amount of thinking can change it. No amount of anger can rewrite it. And no amount of regret can improve it. Yet the mind keeps returning there, believing that revisiting pain will eventually bring closure. What it does not realize is that closure does not come from repetition. Closure comes from presence. When you choose the present moment, you stop feeding the stories that keep pain alive. You notice your breath instead of your memories. You feel the weight of your body instead of the weight of the past. You become aware of what is actually happening rather than what already happened. This shift may seem small, but it is deeply powerful. Buddhism teaches that attention is energy. Wherever your attention goes, your life follows. When your attention stays trapped in the past, your life feels stuck. When your attention returns to the present, movement becomes possible again. Many people fear the present moment because silence brings awareness, and awareness can feel uncomfortable at first. When you stop distracting yourself with thoughts of the past, emotions may surface. Sadness may arise, grief may appear. This does not mean you are doing something wrong. It means you are finally allowing yourself to feel what has been buried beneath mental noise. Buddhism does not teach escape from feeling. It teaches staying present with feeling without becoming lost in it. Choosing the present moment does not mean pretending you were not hurt. It means recognizing that pain does not need constant attention to remain valid. Your experience is already written. You do not need to keep rereading the same page to prove it exists. When you return to the present, you allow life to continue unfolding beyond the chapter that hurt you. Freedom also begins when you understand that happiness is not created by removing pain from the past, but by changing your relationship to time. The past is memory, the future is imagination. Only the present is real. Buddhism teaches that when you live in memory, you suffer loss again and again. When you live in imagination, you suffer fear and anxiety. When you live in the present, you meet life directly, without distortion. As you practice returning to the present, you may notice resistance. The mind may try to pull you back into old stories, especially when something reminds you of what happened. This is normal. Buddhism does not expect the mind to become quiet instantly. It invites patience and repetition. Each time you notice the pull and gently return to now, you weaken the habit of suffering. Over time, the pull becomes softer. The memories lose their emotional charge. the past becomes a reference, not a prison. In the present moment, you begin to rediscover yourself outside of pain. You notice simple things again, the rhythm of your breath, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of silence. These moments may seem ordinary, but they are signs of healing. When the mind is no longer consumed by what hurt you, it becomes sensitive to peace. This sensitivity is not weakness, it is clarity returning. Buddhism teaches that liberation is not dramatic, it is quiet. It happens when you stop arguing with what has already happened and start meeting life as it is. Choosing the present moment is choosing to stop carrying unnecessary weight. It is choosing to trust that you do not need to keep suffering to stay safe. You are allowed to rest in now. Freedom also means allowing yourself to grow beyond who you were when you were hurt. Pain can freeze identity. You may still see yourself as the one who was betrayed, abandoned, or broken. When you stay present, you begin to see that you are more than that story. You are the one who breathes now, who chooses now, who lives now. The past may explain you, but it does not define you unless you let it. Each moment you choose presence, you choose life over memory. You choose peace over repetition. You choose awareness over reaction. Buddhism teaches that enlightenment is not somewhere else. It is not later. It is found in the simple act of being fully here, without carrying what no longer belongs to this moment. When you finally stop carrying who hurt you into the present, something shifts. The mind feels lighter. The heart feels less guarded. You begin to experience moments of calm that do not depend on circumstances. This is not because the past disappeared, but because it no longer controls your attention. Freedom begins quietly, the moment you decide to stop living where pain once lived and start living where life still exists right here, right now. 8. Choosing lightness is choosing life itself. Buddhism teaches that life is already heavy enough without adding unnecessary weight to it. Every human being carries responsibilities, uncertainty, aging, loss, and impermanence. These are natural burdens of existence. But when you continue carrying who hurt you, you add a weight that was never meant to be permanent. You turn a past moment into a lifelong companion. Choosing lightness is not avoidance, it is wisdom. It is understanding that you were not born to spend your life reliving what broke you. Many people believe that carrying emotional pain makes them deep, loyal, or strong. But Buddhism teaches a quieter truth. Clinging to heaviness blocks the natural flow of life. Just as water becomes stagnant when it cannot move, the heart becomes heavy when it cannot release. Life is movement. Everything that exists changes, flows, arises, and passes away. When you hold tightly to pain, you resist this natural rhythm, and resistance creates suffering. Choosing lightness begins with awareness. You begin to notice how much energy is consumed by remembering, analyzing, and emotionally revisiting what happened. You may realize that this weight follows you everywhere. It enters your relationships, shapes your reactions, and influences your self-image. Even when life offers something new, your hands are already full with the past. Buddhism teaches that you cannot receive what is present if you are still holding what is gone. Lightness does not mean becoming careless or indifferent. It means becoming free enough to respond to life clearly. When you let go of old pain, your perception sharpens. You see people as they are now, not through the lens of past wounds. You experience moments as they are, not as reminders of what once hurt you. This clarity is not emotional numbness, it is emotional balance. Buddhism teaches impermanence as a core truth. Everything changes, including pain, but pain can only change if you allow it to. When you hold on to suffering, you try to freeze something that was never meant to stay. You turn impermanence into permanence through attachment. Choosing lightness is choosing to align with the truth of impermanence instead of fighting it. As you practice releasing emotional weight, you may notice fear arise. The mind may ask, "Who will I be without this pain?" Pain often becomes part of identity. It shapes how you explain yourself, how you relate to others, and how you understand your past. Letting go can feel like losing a part of yourself. Buddhism gently teaches that what you lose is not yourself, but the suffering that attached itself to you. Beneath the pain, your original clarity remains untouched. Choosing lightness also means choosing responsibility for your inner state. This does not mean blaming yourself for being hurt. It means recognizing that healing is now in your hands. You cannot undo what happened, but you can decide how much space it occupies in your life today. Buddhism empowers you by reminding you that while you cannot control others, you can cultivate awareness, compassion, and wisdom within yourself. Lightness allows joy to arise naturally, not forced joy, not constant happiness, but moments of ease, calm, and appreciation. You may find yourself enjoying simple things again without guilt. You may feel peace without explaining it. These are signs that the heart is no longer weighed down by old suffering. Buddhism teaches that joy is a natural quality of the mind when it is not obstructed by attachment. Choosing lightness is also choosing courage. It takes courage to stop blaming the past for your present pain. It takes courage to step into uncertainty without the familiar weight of suffering. It takes courage to trust that you do not need to carry wounds to protect yourself. Buddhism teaches that true security comes from awareness, not from armor built out of pain. As lightness grows, you may notice that compassion for others deepens as well. When you are no longer consumed by your own hurt, you become more present with others. You listen without defensiveness. You respond without projection. You engage without fear. This is not because the world became safer, but because your inner world became steadier. In Buddhism, liberation is described as unburdening. It is not about becoming someone else. It is about laying down what you were never meant to carry forever. When you choose lightness, you are choosing life as it is now, not life as it was then. You are choosing breath over memory, presence over pain, and wisdom over habit. You do not need to rush this process. Lightness comes gradually, through repeated moments of awareness. Each time you notice the mind returning to old hurt and gently bring it back, you are releasing weight. Each time you choose rest over rumination, you are choosing life. Each time you allow yourself to feel peace without guilt, you are healing. Buddhism reminds us that freedom is not dramatic. It is subtle and quiet. It happens when you stop arguing with the past and stop punishing yourself for surviving it. Choosing lightness is choosing to live fully, openly, and honestly in the present moment. When you finally put down what hurt you, you realize something profound. Life was never asking you to carry it this long. You were always allowed to let go. 9. You are not betraying your past by moving forward. One of the deepest reasons people struggle to let go is the belief that moving forward somehow betrays their past. Buddhism teaches that this belief is an illusion created by attachment. The mind convinces you that if you stop carrying pain, you are denying what happened, minimizing your suffering, or disrespecting the version of yourself who endured it. But the truth is far more compassionate and far more freeing. You are not betraying your past by healing. You are honoring it by refusing to let it destroy your future. Pain often becomes sacred in the mind. It feels like proof of love, effort, endurance, and survival. The mind whispers that if you let go, it will all have been for nothing. Buddhism gently dismantles this fear. Your experience does not lose meaning just because you stop reliving it. Meaning is not created by suffering longer. Meaning is created by wisdom that grows from suffering. The lesson remains even when the pain is released. When you hold on to the past, you may believe you are staying loyal to your story. In reality, you are staying loyal to a frozen version of yourself. Buddhism teaches impermanence, not only of events, but of identity. You are not the same person you were when you were hurt. Your awareness has changed. Your understanding has deepened. Your capacity has expanded. To insist on carrying the same pain forever is to deny your own growth. Many people fear that if they let go, others will never understand what they went through. But Buddhism does not ask you to seek validation from the outside. It teaches that inner understanding is enough. You do not need to keep suffering so that your pain feels real. It was real when it happened. It is real because you lived it. You do not need to carry it forward to prove it existed. Moving forward does not erase memory. It changes relationship. The memory becomes quieter, softer, less demanding. It no longer interrupts your present moment. It no longer dictates your emotional state. Buddhism teaches that memory without attachment becomes wisdom. Memory with attachment becomes suffering. When you release attachment, the past becomes a teacher, not a prison. There is also a subtle fear that healing will make you vulnerable again. The mind believes pain is armor. It believes that by holding on to hurt, you stay alert and protected. Buddhism teaches the opposite. True protection comes from clarity, not from emotional tension. When you are present and aware, you can see situations clearly and respond wisely. Carrying old pain only clouds perception and keeps you reacting instead of responding. Moving forward means allowing yourself to experience life without constant reference to what hurt you. This can feel unfamiliar at first. The mind may reach for old pain out of habit. Buddhism teaches patience with this process. Habits weaken gradually, not instantly. Each time you notice the pull and choose presence, you strengthen a new pattern. Slowly, the past loosens its grip. You are also not abandoning the person you were when you were hurt. You are caring for them. Imagine telling your younger self that they must suffer forever to honor what they went through. Buddhism teaches kindness instead. It asks you to say, "You endured enough. You are allowed to rest now." Moving forward is an act of compassion toward your past self, not a rejection of them. Another fear is that letting go means the other person wins. Buddhism dissolves this idea completely. Life is not a competition of suffering. There are no winners in pain. Holding on to resentment does not punish the other person. It punishes you. Letting go is not surrendering to injustice. It is refusing to let injustice shape your inner life any longer. As you move forward, you may notice moments of guilt when peace appears. You may think, "How can I feel calm when I was hurt so deeply?" Buddhism teaches that peace does not require permission. You are allowed to experience ease even if others never apologize. You are allowed to smile even if the past was painful. Peace does not erase memory. It simply means you are no longer controlled by it. Moving forward also allows new possibilities to enter your life. When you are no longer occupied with the past, you become available to the present. You notice opportunities, connections, and experiences that were previously invisible. Buddhism teaches that clinging narrows the mind, while release expands it. As space opens, life flows more freely. You may still remember, you may still feel occasional sadness. Healing does not mean emotional erasure. It means emotional balance. The waves become smaller. The intervals of calm grow longer. The past loses urgency. Buddhism honors this natural rhythm. It does not demand that you be over it. It invites you to be here. Ultimately, moving forward is choosing life over memory. It is choosing growth over stagnation. It is choosing wisdom over habit. You are not betraying your past by doing this. You are allowing it to complete its purpose. Pain came to teach you something, not to stay forever. Buddhism teaches that suffering ends when attachment ends. When you stop carrying who hurt you, you are not saying the past did not matter. You are saying that your life matters now. And that choice, quiet, steady, and compassionate, is the beginning of true freedom. 10. When you finally let go, you discover who you were before the pain. Buddhism teaches that beneath every wound, beneath every story of loss, betrayal, or disappointment, there is something untouched. Pain changes us, but it does not become us unless we allow it to. One of the greatest tragedies of holding on to suffering is not the pain itself, but how it slowly convinces you that this pain is who you are. When you finally let go, you do not lose yourself. You rediscover yourself. When someone hurts you deeply, the mind begins to reorganize around that experience. You may start seeing yourself as guarded, broken, cautious, or incomplete. You may believe that you are no longer the same person you were before. Buddhism acknowledges this transformation, but also teaches that pain overlays the mind. It does not replace its original nature. Just as clouds cover the sky without becoming the sky, suffering covers your awareness without becoming your true self. As long as you carry who hurt you, your identity remains tied to the wound. Your choices, reactions, and expectations are shaped by what you fear repeating. You may avoid closeness, suppress emotions, or constantly scan for danger. This is not because you are weak. It is because the mind is trying to protect itself using memory. Buddhism teaches that memory used as protection eventually becomes a cage. Letting go begins to dismantle this cage. At first, it feels unfamiliar. You may feel exposed without the armor of pain. You may wonder who you are without the story you have been telling yourself for so long. This uncertainty is not a sign of loss. It is a sign of transition. Buddhism teaches that all growth involves a period of not knowing. This is the space where old identities dissolve and new clarity emerges. When you stop carrying the past, you begin to notice subtle changes. Your reactions soften, your breath deepens more easily. Silence feels less threatening. You may catch moments where you feel calm without effort, present without tension. These moments are glimpses of who you were before pain reshaped your defenses, not naive, not unprotected, but open, aware, and alive. Buddhism teaches that your true nature is not fear, anger, or resentment. These are conditions that arise and pass. Your true nature is awareness itself, the part of you that observes thoughts, feels emotions, and remains present through change. Pain may have distracted you from this truth, but it never erased it. Letting go removes the distraction. As the weight lifts, you may notice grief arising not for the person who hurt you, but for the time you spent carrying them. This grief is natural. Buddhism does not ask you to suppress it. It asks you to meet it with kindness. Grieving the past is part of releasing it. It is the heart acknowledging what it endured and what it is now ready to leave behind. Rediscovering yourself also means reclaiming choice. When pain dominates the mind, life feels reactive. You respond based on old patterns. When you let go, space appears between stimulus and response. Buddhism teaches that this space is freedom. In this space, you can choose patience instead of anger, openness instead of withdrawal, wisdom instead of habit. You are no longer ruled by what happened to you. You may also begin to experience joy in unexpected ways. Not excitement, not distraction, but quiet contentment. You may enjoy stillness. You may appreciate small moments without overthinking them. Buddhism teaches that joy arises naturally when the mind is not burdened. You do not create this joy. You uncover it by removing what was blocking it. Letting go does not mean life becomes painless. Challenges will still arise. People may still disappoint you. Loss is still part of existence. But when you are no longer carrying unresolved pain, you meet these challenges differently. You respond from clarity rather than from old wounds. Buddhism teaches that suffering decreases not because life changes, but because your relationship with life changes. You also begin to trust yourself again. Pain often erodes self-trust. You may doubt your judgment, your worth, or your ability to choose wisely. As you let go, confidence returns quietly. Not arrogance, but inner stability. You realize that you survived, you adapted, you learned, and now you are capable of moving forward with awareness. One of the most profound realizations Buddhism offers is this: you were never meant to live in survival mode forever. Pain visits, teaches, and leaves. When it overstays, it is because attachment invited it to remain. Letting go is simply closing the door gently and returning to life. When you finally release who hurt you, you do not become empty. You become spacious. In that space, your true self emerges, not defined by what broke you, but by how deeply you can live again. This is not forgetting the past. It is integrating it without letting it dominate you. Buddhism teaches that enlightenment is not becoming someone special. It is becoming free from unnecessary suffering. When you stop carrying who hurt you, you step back into your life fully. You breathe more freely, you see more clearly, you live more honestly. And in that quiet rediscovery, you realize something simple and powerful. You were never broken. You were burdened. And now you are finally putting the weight down. 11. Peace was never meant to be earned through suffering. Buddhism teaches a truth that the wounded mind often resists. Peace is not a reward you receive after suffering long enough. It is not something you must earn by enduring pain, tolerating injustice, or carrying emotional wounds until you feel deserving of relief. Peace is your natural state when the mind is no longer clinging. Yet many people unconsciously believe that letting go too soon is wrong, that suffering must be prolonged in order to be valid, meaningful, or fair. This belief quietly keeps pain alive long after its lesson has been learned. When someone hurts you deeply, the mind creates a moral equation. If I let go, then what they did doesn't matter. Buddhism dissolves this equation entirely. What happened mattered the moment it happened. Your pain mattered the moment you felt it. Suffering longer does not add truth to the experience. It only adds exhaustion. The Buddha taught that clinging to suffering does not honor reality. It distorts it. Many people remain attached to pain because suffering becomes proof. Proof that you loved deeply. Proof that you cared. Proof that you were wronged. Proof that you are not weak. Over time, this proof becomes an identity. You may not consciously choose it, but the mind begins to organize itself around the wound. Thoughts revolve around what happened. Emotions respond through the lens of that memory. Life becomes filtered through pain. Buddhism teaches that when suffering becomes identity, peace feels unfamiliar and even threatening. Peace can feel undeserved after trauma. The mind may say, "How can I be calm when I was hurt like this?" Or, "If I'm peaceful, it means I'm ignoring the truth." Buddhism gently corrects this misunderstanding. Peace does not deny truth. It allows truth to rest. Truth does not need constant agitation to remain real. It does not need to hurt you every day to be acknowledged. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from craving and aversion. Craving for things to have been different. Aversion to what actually happened. When you replay pain, you are often doing both at once. You crave an alternate past and resist the real one. This inner conflict keeps the nervous system tense and the heart unsettled. Peace arrives not when the past changes, but when resistance to it softens. Many people unknowingly punish themselves through remembrance. They replay pain as if it is a moral duty. as if forgetting for even a moment would be disrespectful. Buddhism does not teach forgetting. It teaches non-attachment. There is a difference. Forgetting erases. Non-attachment releases. You remember without reopening the wound. You acknowledge without reliving. This is wisdom, not avoidance. Peace is also misunderstood as passivity. The wounded mind believes that peace means weakness, surrender, or acceptance of harm. Buddhism teaches otherwise. Peace is clarity without agitation. It is strength without aggression. When the mind is peaceful, it sees clearly. It responds wisely. It does not need to rehearse pain to stay alert. Awareness becomes your protection, not suffering. Another reason people cling to pain is fear of repetition. The mind believes that if you keep suffering, you will be prepared if it happens again. Buddhism teaches that preparedness comes from presence, not memory. Memory distorts perception. Presence sharpens it. When you are present, you notice subtle signals, emotional shifts, and inner responses as they arise. You respond in real time. This is far more protective than living inside old wounds. Letting go of the belief that peace must be earned can feel disorienting. You may feel guilt when calm arises. You may feel suspicious of ease. Buddhism invites you to notice this gently. Guilt around peace is simply conditioning. It fades with awareness. You are allowed to feel okay even if the past was not. Peace also does not mean the absence of emotion. Sadness may still come. Grief may still visit. Buddhism does not promise constant happiness. It promises freedom from unnecessary suffering. Emotion flows naturally when attachment loosens. It does not stagnate. You feel, you breathe, and the feeling moves on. This is the rhythm of a peaceful mind. As you stop equating suffering with worth, something profound shifts. You stop measuring your healing by how much pain remains. You stop questioning whether you have paid enough. You begin to understand that healing is not a transaction, it is a return to balance, a return to simplicity, a return to the present. The Buddha taught that liberation comes when the mind stops feeding what hurts it. Peace was never locked behind pain. It was never withheld as punishment. It was always available beneath the noise of attachment. When you stop clinging to suffering as proof, peace does not need to be chased. It reveals itself naturally. You are not dishonoring your story by choosing peace. You are completing it. Pain came to teach you something about impermanence, attachment, and the nature of mind. Once the lesson is seen, continuing to suffer serves no purpose. Buddhism teaches that wisdom knows when to stop. When you finally understand that peace does not need to be earned through pain, the grip of the past loosens, the heart softens, the mind rests. You realize that you were never required to bleed forever to prove you were wounded. Peace was always your right, and letting go is simply remembering that truth. 12. Letting go is how the heart finally comes home. Buddhism teaches that the heart is not meant to live in exile, yet when you carry who hurt you for too long, that is exactly what happens. Your heart leaves the present moment and settles into the past, replaying what was lost, what was broken, and what should have been different. Over time, this becomes so familiar that you forget what it feels like to truly be at home within yourself. Letting go is not about pushing the past away. It is about guiding the heart back to where it belongs. When pain first enters your life, the heart reacts naturally. It tightens, it protects, it withdraws. This is not a mistake. It is a response to shock and loss. Buddhism never shames this reaction. What creates suffering is not the initial tightening, but the refusal to soften again. Many people keep their hearts closed long after the danger has passed, believing that openness will only invite more pain. The heart remains guarded, not because it is broken, but because it has forgotten how to feel safe. Carrying old wounds keeps the heart restless. Even in quiet moments, there is a subtle tension beneath the surface. You may feel disconnected from joy, unsure how to fully relax, or unable to trust calm when it appears. Buddhism teaches that this restlessness is a sign of displacement. The heart is not where it is supposed to be. It is still living in yesterday. Letting go begins when you realize that the heart cannot heal while it is constantly looking backward. Healing requires presence. It requires gentleness. It requires allowing the heart to feel what is here now, instead of endlessly revisiting what is no longer happening. Buddhism teaches that the present moment is the only place where healing can occur, because it is the only place where life is actually unfolding. Many people fear that if they let go, their heart will become empty. Buddhism teaches the opposite. The heart becomes empty only when it is overcrowded with pain, resentment, and memory. When you release what no longer belongs, space opens. In that space, warmth returns, sensitivity returns, aliveness returns. Letting go is not the loss of feeling, it is the restoration of feeling. The heart also carries guilt, guilt for moving on, guilt for feeling lighter, guilt for not hurting as much as before. Buddhism recognizes this guilt as another form of attachment. It is the belief that suffering is a form of loyalty. But loyalty to pain is not loyalty to truth. Truth does not demand punishment. It asks for understanding. When the heart finally understands that it is allowed to heal, guilt loosens its grip. Buddhism teaches that the heart is naturally compassionate, but compassion becomes distorted when it is turned only outward. Many people extend endless understanding to those who hurt them, while denying that same understanding to themselves. They excuse harm, justify behavior, and minimize their own pain, believing this is kindness. True compassion includes the heart itself. Letting go is an act of compassion toward your own exhaustion. As the heart comes home, you may notice old emotions resurfacing not as sharp pain, but as gentle echoes. This is not regression, it is integration. Buddhism teaches that healing does not erase memory, it transforms it. The memory loses its charge. It no longer demands attention. It becomes part of your story without controlling it. This is what it means for the heart to settle. Coming home to yourself also means reclaiming your inner authority. When pain dominates the heart, external events control your inner state. Other people's actions continue to shape how you feel long after they are gone. Buddhism teaches that freedom arises when you take responsibility for where your heart rests. You cannot control what happened, but you can choose not to live there forever. Letting go also restores trust, not necessarily in others, but in life itself. When you carry pain too long, life feels hostile and unpredictable. The heart stays guarded, expecting loss. As you release attachment, the heart slowly learns that not every moment is dangerous. It learns that calm can exist without threat. This trust does not make you careless. It makes you present. The heart coming home does not mean it will never feel pain again. Buddhism is clear that pain is part of life. Loss will come, change will come. But a heart that has learned to let go does not cling. It feels, releases, and returns to balance. This flexibility is wisdom. This is the heart functioning as it was meant to. In Buddhism, enlightenment is often described not as acquiring something new, but as remembering something essential. Letting go is remembrance. It is the heart remembering how to rest, how to soften, how to be present without armor. You were not born carrying these wounds. You learned to carry them, and what is learned can be unlearned. When the heart finally comes home, there is a quiet sense of rightness. Nothing dramatic, nothing forced. Just a feeling of being where you are meant to be, the past loses its pull. The future loses its anxiety. The present feels enough. Letting go is not the end of your story. It is the moment the heart stops wandering and returns to itself. And in that return, you realize something simple and profound. Peace was never somewhere else. It was waiting for you to come back. Buddhism teaches that suffering does not end because the past changes, but because your relationship to the past changes. Everything you have carried, the memories, the resentment, the unanswered questions, the weight of what should have been, has already served its purpose. It showed you where attachment lived. It showed you how deeply you cared. It showed you the cost of clinging. You were never meant to carry these lessons forever in the form of pain. Letting go is not forgetting. It is remembering yourself again. It is remembering that your heart was never designed to be a storage place for old wounds. It was designed to feel, to release, and to return to balance. When you stop carrying who hurt you, you are not erasing your story. You are allowing it to mature into wisdom instead of remaining stuck as suffering. Choosing your happiness does not require permission from the past. It does not require apologies that may never come. It does not require complete understanding of why things happened the way they did. Buddhism teaches that peace is not found through perfect explanations, but through presence, awareness, and non-attachment. The moment you stop demanding that the past make sense, you free yourself to live now. You may still remember. You may still feel tenderness when certain thoughts arise. This is not failure. This is humanity. Healing is not about becoming untouched by life. It is about becoming untangled from what no longer belongs to the present. Each time you choose awareness over rumination, compassion over self-punishment, and lightness over burden, you are practicing freedom. Let go of them, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in clarity. Choose your own happiness, not loudly, not forcefully, but quietly and consistently. Buddhism reminds us that the deepest transformations happen in silence, when the heart finally lays down what it was never meant to carry forever. Your life is still here, your breath is still here, peace is still possible. And it begins the moment you decide to stop carrying who hurt you and start carrying yourself with care.